Welcome everyone, Simon here from the Whales of Wall Street, a Chainlink video for everyone today. Link, link on the exchange. I have not done a Chainlink video for 3 years. How embarrassing. We're going to be looking at the chart progression of the Link token a bit later in this video. And we kind of answer that question, the overarching question of if we're going to see the price go beyond its previous all-time high and what variables can constitute towards that happening, as well as a bit of a refresh on Chainlink in general. For those that are new to crypto or have been around for some time, it's always good to have a bit of a refresh. And to be honest, I did hold Link in the past. I don't anymore, but it's certainly of interest to me as a technology, as a project. I've been very fortunate to have worked alongside Chainlink in the last few years, as well as working with them closely last year when working alongside Paris Blockchain Week. So an incredible team, incredible technology, and certainly massive advancements even from just 3-4 years ago. Since the previous videos that we've done, so much has happened. But let's go into this topic, guys. Before we go any further, don't forget, of course, to smash that subscribe button, please. If you do enjoy the content, hit the like button as well. All feedback is welcome in the comments, and any thoughts, predictions, feelings, or any crypto assets you want us to cover, do let us know in that comment section. So without further ado, let's go straight into this one. So here's a quick overview. As I said, we'll do a trading view chart analysis shortly. But to skim the top line info here, $24 on the charts right now as of recording, a market cap of 15.3 billion, which is phenomenal, and some really good trade volume on that 24-hour scale as well. You'll see that quite consistently with Chainlink, even if it's in its bare momentums. And it was only sort of a year and a half ish ago, maybe 2 years now, and it was quite a good low price even last year, and we've accelerated a bit further from that, and you can see all-time high back here in 2021 at $52. So that we will come back to in a moment, but there's a quick recap of its standing. So Chainlink, I'm going to filter through the entire website, but I'll just give you the kind of overview. Look at that, total transactions valued enabled. Wow, that's a lot. Goodness me. So guys, Chainlink, as I said, it's one of my favorite technologies to consider when we're looking at blockchain and crypto, and it's definitely plausible for investment, of course, at any point. I think this has a huge future and opportunity. As I said, I don't have in my portfolio at the moment. I've got many assets in there. I did take advantage of Chainlink years ago in that 2021 market and haven't returned since. That is nothing against the project or technology at all. But I do like to do videos on the basis that anything that stands out specifically in blockchain is worth my time and research as well. So for those that don't know, it's an Oracle network. Just to put that into kind of some context, if you like, that kind of refers to like an external service or system that relatively provides smart contracts with access to real world data, events, or even outcomes based on computing. The principal point I would like to make here is there's just like a load of areas that it covers. When I was working with Chainlink previously, well, not for them, but with them, we used them for the VRF. I can't remember for the life of me what VRF mainly stand for. I'm pretty sure it's something like virtual randomized something. And it was to do with making sure, because obviously blockchain is transparent and the processing aspect is really important. It was to make sure that when winners were picked, it was completely randomized. And given that proof that we didn't just use some random generators online or this, that, and that. It was just something so basic for like the principle of prizes, and especially when it comes to monetary values or tokens being passed on to people's wallet addresses, it's really important. So you definitely got that verifying of the data, the accuracy, the integrity of that, and Chainlink's got a huge part of that for sure. It also does a lot of work, of course, in the background for APIs or allowing people to use APIs that it has. And typically, if I remember correctly, with Chainlink, I'm pretty sure it's got... Oh, there's VRF. Why didn't I just press this to explain it even further for you guys? So here you go, on-chain randomness. This is obviously advanced, couple of years since I last used this service. But I think if I remember correctly, within the functions aspect, the API situation is you can literally have code written for you to help with your project building or that connectivity to other systems or other devices. It's really fantastic. So from a developer's perspective or integration into existing systems, whether you're in blockchain or not, but having that ability to have something so easy and simple, if you're a coder obviously and understand these kind of things, it's really a powerful tool, a powerful company to be utilizing. And one of those examples, I guess, I mean, we could look at a few different case studies, but I'm picking out this one in particular about Swift. I mean, they work, so many companies, and pretty much most big crypto companies work with Chainlink anyway. Of course, you've got Ethereum, that's a given. But they're very heavily orientated around providing the Ethereum ecosystem, so it's also huge as the Oracle provider. You've got Google Cloud. I think with that side of it, it's around BigQuery data. So back to that point about data, confirming its validity and things like that. So it's very enterprise level. But going beyond enterprise, you can talk about Swift. Of course, this is the global financial messaging network. You can't really get much bigger in finance than Swift, to be honest, in terms of the infrastructure and the ability to process and essentially create that formality for traditional financial systems. That particular partnership or integration, I mean, this article is fantastic. It goes into a bit of detail, but this was very much around ensuring that banks were able to leverage blockchain for that aspect of secure aspect of it, and the efficient cross-border payments, which is of course a big topic when it comes to finance in general. And when we're talking quite nicely here about finance, we can also incorporate potentially things like DeFi in general as well. Of course, decentralized finance. This is a huge area. I mean, it's kind of funny because in 2021 or just before that, maybe even when I was getting into crypto initially, DeFi was a big topic. It still is, obviously, because this is what it is, right? But for me personally, that kind of DeFi narrative has kind of gone into the back of our minds. I think it's definitely worth reminding ourselves every now and then. So obviously the powering of that smart contract aspect, you need your accurate pricing data, particularly things like lending platforms and things like that, real-time cryptocurrency pricing to, if in a loan instance, for example, measuring and calculating that collateral ratio. And you've also got things around the kind of reliance or the resilience, if you like, of single data sourcing. So we want to reduce that risk of manipulation and increasing, obviously, the trust or the confidence in end users. So it pulls in those figures. And DeFi in general, by the way, guys, is a massive market. You can sort of look at 2 or 3 different research sites, but they're all going to come to a fairly similar conclusion, in the sense that around about now, in sort of this year period, you're looking at kind of around $123 billion worth of value, I think, or total value locked anyway, in decentralized finance protocols. The anticipation is that by 2030, that compound annual growth CAGR by at least 46%. I mean, some say 30, some say 46, but irrespective of that, you're looking at between sort of that £337 billion mark, or maybe even slightly lower than that, to around 250. So still well over double where it is today. So just the DeFi section alone, and what we're seeing, as I've shown you on the page here, with the likes of integrations with Swift. This isn't DeFi, by the way. This is just traditional finance. But we, of course, know about the RTGS system towards the end of this year going live. We know about CBDCs, for example. We know about stablecoins. That's going to increase significantly as well. And this is the point I'm making. This initiative would enable digital asset transactions to settle with fiat payment systems across more than 11,500 financial institutions across 200 countries and territories. So obviously globally. And another further impact point here in terms of costs and things like that. $63 trillion global mutual fund market, missed investment opportunities within that sector, that market. So I'm not saying that Chainlink is going to operate and facilitate this entire $63 trillion global market fund, but to have even a short percentage of that is going to be phenomenal. And bear this point in mind for when we come to the chart, because we need to talk about the variables as to why we think prices will go to certain levels, okay? Other parts to mention quickly, the Link token itself, of course, that is users pay Link tokens for the node operators. So that's applying for the provisions of data, the computation performances, and of course the smart contracts. Then you've got the staking and security. So the staking nodes very much around helping the reliability and to reduce the, dishonest behavior, for a better word. And then of course governance. So as this blockchain technology infrastructure that Chainlink has gets used more and more, that Link token is of course getting used more as well, and thus would essentially increase the adoption and the usage increase in general, to obviously help with that Link price point going higher. So you've got those aspects. So yeah, it can increase based on obviously the demand for utilizing it within the Oracle. You can have the staking lockup pool. I don't really see that as too much of an influence, but it's definitely a plausible part of it. And the network growth in general. So more partnerships, more integrations like we see in our screens right now will really entail massively for that Link price in the chart. So when we're looking at the chart, actually, let's pull that up because we can talk about the all-time high and everything around that as well. So this is just a quick overview chart. This actually corresponds with probably the last video I did, to be honest. I'm leaving it there. I'm going to draw a new one in. We'll take one of the most recent high points that we got here at $30. One of the lowest points, which we're taking from around about August 2024. This will give us a bit of a new reflective point. What's interesting here, based on the last video, is we're actually not far off where I did those intricate points anyway. I'm just going to pull that up. So there we go. Now, the argument here is first and foremost, where are we going to get to in 2025? Now, the argument I was going to make was similar to what we would normally look at in the past, but also based on those fib levels. So if I just quickly pull that back down, the last video I did with Link, when we were up at these higher prices, that did not take into consideration the $53 all-time high. So we hit that, and it's obviously hit this retracement level here. So it's really interesting to see that actually hit that specific marker, and that maintained itself as to be the all-time high. So it literally touched it from those recent high points and low points that we took when we did that video. It couldn't go beyond that. It's a big stretch, going from $50 to 72. It's definitely possible, but at that time the market was just had enough. Bitcoin went to its all-time high, etc., and NFTs were a craze, if you remember, gaming, etc., the metaverse. Wow, where did that narrative go, eh? So we pull it across back to here, and I'm just going to, as I mentioned earlier, just move that one up. Why? Because what I want to see is that projection of if we get to these levels. So we're very much bang on, guys, in these lower levels where we were back then. And even when the start of the bull market happened. So we're not too far off where it was back in 2021. Are we seeing a significant trending pattern that's kind of imitating this area? And if so, well, there's an argument to say that maybe we won't get past our all-time high. We'll have to see. But as we said earlier, with the variables taking into consideration the advancement of Chainlink progressing all the time, its adoption in progressing all the time, and the fact that if it's heavily involved in the likes of things like Swift and the DeFi protocols in general, this market is only going to keep growing, and it's going to keep needing oracles and platforms like Chainlink to work with. So I personally do think it would go past that all-time high. Will it happen this year? Possibly. And if it does, I could potentially anticipate that we just might be able to get to this all-time barrier as we had in the previous one up here. This is definitely a target. Now, for me, if I was to invest in Chainlink right now, I'd be looking at two things. I'd be looking at the price of the Chainlink. Now, if you've got loads of capital, then happy days. If you don't, you're looking at that and thinking it's probably a bit more expensive or higher price cost than a lot of the other networks and projects out there. I try not to look at it in that way. I try and look at it, well, what's the gain percentage potential? Now, if it's going from 25 to 50, no offense, I'm not going to be interested or entertained with that, because that's just double my money. I can do that in loads of different ways, quite easily, doubling money. So I'm more interested if we had a reaction that saw us way beyond that 100. The big question really is, from this point onwards to 100, that's about 305%, which is pretty decent. But it's what, 4x from where it is currently to get to there. Is that exciting enough? Well, a profit is a profit at the end of the day, of course. But as I said, if I had loads of them, then obviously that bigger value goes higher. But in ratio, I'm still gaining the same percentage, if that makes sense. There's a load more projects out there you can make a lot more money with, in my opinion. So the next movements up, if I was to get excited, and if I was buying at $25, where would I be starting to get excited? Well, essentially, and this might be conservative, it might be irrational for some other people out there, but for me, I wouldn't really be interested, at least until we got towards this sort of 150 mark, or sort of pushing the 160. So that's a long way off. We didn't even achieve that in the last run, how big Chainlink was back then. I do think Chainlink is massively bigger than it was obviously in 2021, and that's understandable. It's very organic growth, and you'd expect that in any way with an oracle like Chainlink or a network or project like Chainlink a few years later down the line. So the orientation in my head right now is to try and get past these two resistance levels here that we saw back here. We haven't seen those numbers since then, November 2021. So we scale across here. We got close. It was about $30 mark. The last time we saw a $30 mark, or thereabouts, the closest I can find is 10th of January 2022. But before that, accelerating past it, if you want to have that argument, it was around about the 15th of November 2021. So I'm not comparing the scale of when months and things started, but if you did want to look at that kind of infrastructure data, you could suggest that, well, maybe perhaps we are in this part here. We could be starting around here. And naturally, that would mean we've obviously got the Trump inauguration and stuff in April. So if you remember in 2020, we had the little market crash, which was around March time in 2020, right? That was all the way back here. So it almost had partial irrelevance. I don't think we're going to have something similar like that. Because if that is the argument and we have something that goes on in March and April this year that tanks it, then that would suggest that we're there, matching up with here. And we've still got all of this to come by the end of the year and into next year. I'm not so sure about that. That's why I don't really like going in too much into those kind of trend matters. I'm more interested in what's here in the here and now. So going back to today's market levels in the last few weeks, we can see, if we look closely, these fib levels here, we must get past this marker, have a bit of stability up and down around that area for sure, before we can test the next level up, which is $44. If we get to 44, then happy days, because I do think really, realistically, we could potentially push up to these higher levels by the end of this year. I usually am conservative, but I'm just taking into consideration the progression that Chainlink has in front of it and what the financial industry is going to be doing towards the end of this year. Now, it could tail into next year for sure. Ultimately, I think personally, you will see these higher prices up here, maybe $150 to $200 by 2030, maybe 2028, 2030, wherever that cycle carries on. For now, I'm going to be surprised personally if we get beyond the $100 in 2025. I'm going to earmark it anyway because it's the top of the fib level here. It doesn't quite match up with the markers here. In fact, the marker up here suggests 120. Let's say 120 maybe by the end of this year. Who knows? Or into next year. Let's just call it this cycle for argument's sake. The trend down is 90 before that, but you will see here this was a full market spread, guys. If we can start that point as we are doing over here, let's say we're starting from that point, yes, it is definitely possible. But there's so many variables in there, which is why I don't really like doing too many predictions. One, I'm not a financial advisor, and two, the segmented aspect of this is that it's too difficult. It's too difficult to create that trend in our minds. We can only go based on what's in front of us, what the levels potentially could be, but there's so many things that have to align for this to happen. I'm really interested to know your thoughts and feelings on the Link price this year and what you think even by 2030. Does it match up with what I'm saying here? Am I being too conservative? Is it going to go higher? I'm not a shiller. I'm not someone who's going to sit there and go, oh, it's going to be $1,000 by the end of the year because I think it is in my head for no reason. I'm not going to do that. All I'm going to do is give logical aspects as to, well, first and foremost, what am I going to be excited about or want to see in terms of a return? Is that return level possible? Yes or no? At the moment, I don't think I'm going to see a massive return on Link. If I was holding Link still from 2021 and I didn't do anything with it, or I was buying loads of Link down here at $6 to $10, I think it's happy days if you're getting to $40, $50, $100 because you already made that commitment. If you're coming in now, which is my point, you've just got to run the risk and analysis in your heads. For the short term, the RSIs are around about the 58, 60 mark. This suggests that there's still some upward trend available left in the tank, but I don't think the push will be up to 44 just yet. I think it will take a lot of effort, a lot of marketing, a lot of narrative to kick in for it to get to that. When it does and it stabilizes itself, we can definitely start potentially testing that 60, 70 level. But first, we have to get past this all-time high, guys. We're still quite far off it. Even when we got to 31, we still needed more money in the tank. And by the way, that jump to 30 and 50 is quite significant when the market cap is already very high. It needs a massive injection to hit that number and a quick turnaround for it to gain that momentum. Because if it does it slowly, yeah, of course, it's going to be organic and slow potentially. But I think the reaction to get to those all-time highs and way beyond that, it needs a constant push. So that's my thoughts and feelings on it anyway. Performance indicators are still very good for Chainlink. It's a phenomenal project. It's going to have legs in the future. I think in 2030 and beyond, it's going to be a massive one. It's something that will sit in pension funds and ETFs 100%. But until then, this is what we're dealing with. Let us know in the comments below what your thoughts and opinions are on Link. We'll wrap that up there. We'll catch up with these guys very soon. Take care. Bye-bye.